This episode of the CMO Suite is brought to you by Uconnect. Uconnect is the premier provider of managed and in-house servicing in the biddable media space. If you're looking for true transparency with paid social, PPC, or programmatic, or are a brand or agency looking into in-housing your team, connect with Uconnect. Uconnect.com and Toomey. Toomey provides luxury without limits. I've got the bag. I've got the backpack. Thank you, Charlie Cole. If you are a business traveler, there is nothing that lets you roll in style like Toomey. It's in the studio with me today. That's true. And finally, No Kid Hungry. We are incredibly proud to make a contribution to No Kid Hungry in the name of each of our 2019 guests. Stop by nokidhungry.org today to contribute and help kids to be kids, not be hungry. Let's start the show.
You're in the CMO Suite, the podcast for marketers who want to be in the know, presented by Connectivity Holdings.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CMO Suite. I'm your host, Sean Halter, and we are recording some of our absolutely last episodes of the season in New York City, and I am incredibly excited about the guest that I have coming up here. Now, I'm not going to lie, I have stalked him for many a year, and we will talk about that in just a moment. His bio is this. For over 2 decades, he's been an award-winning integrated digital experienced in advertising, brand marketing, technology, production. There's not a title he probably hasn't had at some point, and again, I'm sure we'll talk about many of those along the way. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the publisher of Ad Age, Josh Golden. Josh, how are you?
Thank you, Sean. I'm well, thank you. I'm
Did
doing
I
good.
botch that
No.
bio?
No,
there were so many titles
words,
and things.
It's a word salad. I think it needs to. We need to clean that up.
We'll
perhaps.
cut that down. I was going to say we'll cut it in post, but we probably actually won't cut
I
it in
think
post.
it's a perfect represent. I'm like the Marco Polo of careers. I'm endlessly searching for the next masterful pasta.
The reality is you've done a lot in your time, though. You've had lots of interesting stops along the way, and as I said, we'll talk about that. The reality is also this, as hopefully all of you that listen to the show know, we typically broadcast out of iHeart Radio Studio here in New York City. Josh has been kind enough to actually host us here at Ad Age, and I say thank you.
You're welcome. It's funny because it's ordinarily just sounds beautiful, and as we're we do all of our 4 podcasts out of this suite, but now because you have a video asset, it's now we're getting to see the kind of the how magical it is for real.
Listen, it's a podcast studio, right? And the reality is we're shooting on video because it gives us content to work from, and as I'm sure we'll touch base with that. As we continue the show, content seems to be the key to almost everything these days. Am I correct?
You are correct, sir. Am I your just answer like you call and repeat? I'm ready. Yes. The answer is yes.
Are we going to get call and repeat on this whole show? I'm hopeful.
I'm
incredibly excited.
I'm hopeful.
You've also been kind enough to allow us to utilize one of your show producers, and to thank you again as well. Hopefully,
Max, star producer.
Max, hopefully I won't talk too loud because I'm prone to do so, and so I know. Watch the mic levels.
You get excited.
I do get excited.
It's good
because it's fun, right?
Absolutely.
I think we are all trying to find as cliche as that sounds, Josh, we are all trying to find the fun in some of this.
If you don't have fun, you shouldn't do it.
Because it's pretty damn chaotic out there right now.
It is hard.
Behind these magical 4 walls with this amazing lighting and soundproofing and really nice microphones, let's be honest with you.
Not bad. Listen how good my voice is. By the way, I don't sound like this ordinarily.
Your voice does sound really good. You should walk around with one of these microphones all the time. Every once in a while, I feel like I've got my good DJ voice on, and then I listen to an episode, I'm like, dang it, I forgot to do my DJ voice in that one. And it's just the same old crappy Sean Halter voice. So let me set the stage for a moment if I can, which is I originally met you, I feel like it probably was maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. This is one of my favorite stories to tell people when I tell them that I'm known as sometimes being maybe, some people say aggressive when it comes to just kind of finding people out there in the marketplace. I don't know what word you would use.
I would never say aggressive. I would say you're
tenacious,
and you have stick-to-itiveness.
Oh, thank you, stick-to-itiveness. Yes, my grandmother would probably have said that back in the day, stick-to-itiveness. But we were, I was at probably the first time I had ever been at Ad Agency, small agency conference. It was down in Miami, which was absolutely beautiful.
Amazing location.
And then suddenly the skies opened, and as is wont to do sometimes in Florida, a torrential rain came our way, and we were all trying to figure out, oh my God, what in the world are we going to do? Because there was some rain planning, but yes.
There was definitely some backup.
There was some backup. And so that being said, everybody kind of rushed inside. People were kind of going up and down.
Everyone was in white.
Yes, I do remember some of that as well.
Men and women.
Men and women wearing, as, again, you're prone to do in Florida. So that said, you were coming down an elevator. I was with a buddy of mine, and as I am, again, probably want to do sometimes. I'll just talk to anybody sometimes.
I'm a big elevator chatter as well.
And I said, oh, hi. Is this your first time here? And I think you may have literally said, why, yes, it is.
I said yes. I love this I said I think I may have asked. Did I ask you like what did you think?
Have. Yeah. And I was like, oh, it's pretty cool. It's my first time. It's Miami. I love Miami.
It's my small little market research I was doing.
And then I, unbeknownst to me, because I hadn't actually seen your photo. I wasn't
on stage yet until the end.
And you were not in the stage yet. So I was like, so what are you doing here? Who do you work for? And you're like, oh, I work for Ad Age. I was like, oh, that's cool. What do you do for them?
That was my second secret answer. I work for Ad Age is my second answer.
And then you said publisher. And I was like, oh, thank goodness I said I'm actually having a good time, right?
No, you asked for my card at the end. You're like, wait, you're the publisher? I'm like, yeah, but it would have been weird to be like, I'm the publisher of Ad Age, and I hope you're enjoying this.
If I was the publisher of Ad Age, I think that's probably the kind of publisher I'd be. They're like, you give me your card first, sir, before I give you mine.
Mine's worth it.
But you were incredibly kind and gracious, and
I'm endlessly interested in discovering what it is that people want from Ad Age, what they're hoping to learn, where we can improve. I am never afraid of hearing hard pieces of information because I really think it's important to ask, and you have to be. You have to steel yourself for like this person might not like it, or might not be digging what's going on.
And we were both so young back then.
Yes,
4 years ago.
Many more hair.
When the word programmatic was like, well, what's that? I have no idea.
New word.
How's that journey been? I mean, I want to talk about obviously where you were before that, but reminiscing about that night maybe to some extent. How has that been? Has it gone faster than you thought that it would? Slower than you thought that it would?
Yeah, no.
Do you remember back actually to that time?
I do remember. I remember
probably because elevator. Of the rain. Do you remember the elevator?
My events.
This crazy kid stopping me in the elevator.
We joke endlessly about that particular moment because it was just so dramatic. Went from like perfect, beautiful sun to like bam, rain. I do think the journey has been fabulous as a new publisher, as a person from coming outside of the industry, publishing industry in particular. I was on the agency side, and I was on the brand side, and I've been on the network side. I've been in many different places. This role is a great way to connect all of the sort of the history that I've had to make it sort of valuable. My daughter asked me this weekend, she said, Daddy, do you like your job? And I was like...
Did you pause at all?
No,
or
I jumped straight in. I was like, Lila, I got to tell you, my job... I'm enjoying it tremendously because if you can get like 3 of the 5 things on one hand saying why you like a particular job, it's really valuable. It's working with people you really like, having an area, an interest that you happen to be sort of passionately interested in, focused on having enough runway to have some room. I want to grow something. I want to make something. I want to have impact. Having the opportunity to be visible and have like a kind of it's in a role that's like I'm very much out, like in this podcast. I'm out there. I'm endlessly talking about Ad Age and how it can help people's careers grow and then also feeding back to me like, well, what else should we be doing? Because I'm open. And when she asked me the question, I said I feel like I'm not remembering from number 5, but all 5. I was like, whenever you can fill up a hand with the reasons why you love a job, you work harder at it because it's really worth it.
And you had probably more you could have gone to.
No, I could. I like I like 3s and 5 odd numbers.
3s and 5s, odd numbers.
It's always better to have something that is.
They always fill the conversation out, right?
Like, let me tell you, it's 3 reasons. Boom.
Boom, boom, boom. So you talked a little bit about your daughter. You talked about the fact that you had some other jobs prior to getting here. So where did you grow up? Did you grow up on the West Coast?
No, I was East Coaster. Okay. I grew up in cities that all sound like locations. I grew up. My first place I was born was called Closter, New Jersey, which is.
Is it close to New Jersey?
It's semi-accurate. Yes, it's in New Jersey, but it's close. It's right next to all the cool places.
That's hilarious.
And then I moved to Easton, Pennsylvania, because my father was the head of marketing for Crayola crayons.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I was like I was like one of 3 Jews in Pennsylvania. That's how it worked.
But you had all the crayons.
And I was like, hey, I got the crayons.
Come over to my house. Incredibly popular, right?
Come on over to my house. And then after that, I went to film school in Ithaca, and then I went out west to to go explore film, which I found out when I was the head PA from the John Tesh and Lisa Gibbons show from Hollywood. It was definitely less than what film school had promised because I wasn't directing.
Did this theme song come over like every night? Did you?
Yes. As a matter of fact, just to be clear, that theme song was the moment that I would be like, oh, finally they're done. Thank God. Now I can take the tapes and run it over to Burbank. And it was like 9:30 every night. And
that was the job.
That was actually, I'll be honest. The first job I had was a recycling job inside of Paramount Pictures. And I tell that to my kids, both Eli and Lila. They're like, so what was your first job? I'm like, I was a garbage man.
Really?
Garbage man, 100%. I was like, hey, Mr. Jones, how are you? I'm gonna clean this. Is it good enough? Oh, recycle bin. Oh, you know what? You missed the thing. This is plastic and this is paper. Okay, here we go. Got it. And they quickly moved me out of that job to be like, why don't you go be a PA on a show? I just really liked cleaning the garbages.
They sent you over there. They sent you over to Entertainment Tonight.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Crayola for just a second. So
Sure.
your dad worked for Crayola. So
He
you're
did. Actually, it was Binney and Smith at the time that owned Crayola. Just let you know, just a little accuracy. I don't, it's your podcast, so I want to be careful.
It was called Binney
and Smith was the name of the company that owned Crayola crayons.
And were they based in Pennsylvania? Is
They
that
were.
where you guys were there?
They were. That's where the Crayola factory is as of today.
And so did you literally just have like every color crayon there
Yes,
is imaginable?
I did.
My wife worked for Lego for a little while, and so like I didn't have to be that nice to my kids' friends because she had all of these Legos.
Every Lego possible.
Every Lego possible. And we didn't know it until she got the job. But when you trade out the big displays for Lego, they're all glued together. You can't take the Legos apart. So our kids would we'd have the displays because you're supposed to throw them away. And she threw all of them away, of course. But they'd have these cool displays and their friends would try to take them apart and you can't. They're all glued together. So you had all the Crayola, every color possible.
And then he moved into managing the paint division, Liquitex, which I then repaint if possible. So I made a lot of paintings as a child.
What did your mom do?
My mom was head of marketing for AT&T. She actually was a computer science major and graduated in 1968. So she was the computer science mathematician, PhD in math. My father went to music school and had his master's in music.
And they both end up in marketing somehow.
Well, actually, he was more of an entrepreneur, creator of he ended up in marketing and then now more recently has evolved into innovation and creating a lot of different products for big box stores, more like CVS's in the world, creating poster products. And my mom is now working and supporting that business. So both of them. And now my sister has joined that business as well. So I'm the outlier. I'm the person who has not yet joined the business.
Did they ask you to join
Yes,
along the way? Okay,
they totally did. They did.
We could go down that role.
It was nice. I just really liked what I was doing. I always enjoyed what I was doing.
I did a podcast out of California earlier this year. Really a great opportunity to kind of talk to some people out on the West Coast. And the gentleman that I was interviewing was talking about his dad and his family and kind of started tearing up a little bit. And I immediately just kind of changed the subject a little bit. I kind of felt bad. I don't want somebody to cry. This is a marketing podcast. It's not, Days of Our Lives.
Your life, right.
But I sent it to Brian here and Brian,
Breaker,
and he's editor, right?
Yes, he's the editor.
And he says to me, Halter, you buried the lead. I was like, but Brian, he was going to cry. He's like, no, you want him to cry. I'm like, it's marketing.
Crying. It's part of the deal.
Bring some tears. I don't think I'll see any today. But,
no. You never know. I'm on the edge.
Apparently, Brian will be very disappointed.
I should try.
That's why I tried to go down that road of like, well, maybe you were not invited to be part of the family business.
It's a good
business. Is there
business.
Scandal that we don't know about?
I wish there were. No, it's all wonderful. They do a great job of business, and I do get to help out now and then.
So you have a sister that works for them now. Yes. Any other family?
That's it.
Brother and sister. Older, younger?
She is older from 3.5 years.
So you're the baby.
I am the child, the youngest baby. Yes.
Do you feel like you're kind of a mama's boy a little bit as the baby?
It's funny. I don't know whether I associate.
Is it funny or peculiar? I don't know.
No, I'm just trying to decide. Like, would I be? I'm sure when I was very young, I was really into my mom.
Yeah.
As as you grow, I feel this about my children. Like there were times when my daughter was very much into me, and then my son was less, and now it switches around. I think.
And you have a son and a daughter as well.
Both. Yes.
Same thing. Daughter older and son younger.
No, my son is older.
Okay.
And it's that's the way it came out.
And it's funny, though, as our kids get older, and now, again, talking about your mom and your dad and your sister working there, but you're right. Your kids are one kind of way when they're kids, and then as they start to get older and they mature and they change, my son has been so much like my wife's side of the family. My My daughter was a lot like me, but as they get older, they really kind of become, I guess, themselves, and they kind of almost switch roles to some extent a little
Yeah,
bit.
I think that's interesting to think about the evolution. I don't know. I can never, I don't think they could ever. My parents could have ever like said he's going to be in marketing because I was an actor in high school and then I did film and I could never. You could never make that path. But I do. I like to think about what my children would potentially be. I have no idea though. Zero.
So was your grandfather in marketing to
No,
some point as well? They were the kind of first really generation because of where they'd started
Yes.
from, and they just ended up kind of falling into that a little bit. But
Yes,
you could be
yes.
third generation, which would be kind of interesting. We interviewed a guy earlier this year, and he was like fourth generation. I was like, wow. And he's like, there's really only been 5 generations in marketing. I guess you could go back.
Oh yeah,
but,
I guess you're right.
he's
When you
kind
think
of talking about the fact of advertising
beginning
kind
of
of started
advertising,
in, beginning of advertising.
Huh.
So it's interesting.
I didn't think
kind
about
of
that
a
really.
new-
Interesting. That's a new thought. Like how many generations of
Yeah.
I guess car manufacturing could also go similarly back to
Can't go back much further than the Etzel, right? Yeah.
It's very, very clever.
It kind of also, I think, maybe makes you realize how small this business is to some extent.
That
as
is
well.
why I think you just put your finger on it for this little moment here. Why this industry is so it's so teeny tiny that everyone it's only so many people that are in this industry. There's only so many brands and agencies that it does require a certain amount of. Well, there's only so many people that can fit in the seats. Almost like the what is it? The seat where the music stops. The music. Pull the
Musical
seat out.
chairs.
Musical chairs. Thank you very much. I had it.
It was
I
right
gonna
there.
write
I
tongue-
pulled it straight out, though.
Musical chairs. Yes.
It is also surprising, I think, to your point, how small this industry is, how connected it really is. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty, like every industry, some people come into it and then they kind of wash out of it, or they decide they want to do something completely different. But there's a core group kind of to some extent,
There is.
especially in this city.
There is.
Everybody knows each other.
It's a very connected group. I find it to be, it's empowering because if you have something really important, like really, really important, you're passionate about, and and it's not business based, it's personal based, you can rely on just about anybody who's in the industry to be like, yep, I'm in that.
And don't you also feel like maybe to some extent that if you're also maybe a little honest with them and you're open about what your intentions are, that they're much more likely to
Totally.
Yeah.
When I was asked to be a part of the Gun Safety Alliance, which is really important to me from having children and recognizing how much this country needs that change to happen. I just past Friday, we were asked by the Gun Safety Alliance, the core team, Carolyn Everson and Stephen Wolf Pereira and Kristen Lemkow and I know Shelley Palmer, those that core group, that they asked us to pull together a hackathon, which we did last year, and we were going to do it again this year. And I quickly called Neil Whaler from Whaler. I said, "Would you give us your space?" And in 3 seconds, he was like, "Absolutely, I'm on it." Because it's not a business thing; it's a good for the world thing, and we just in
just
5
happens that
minutes,
fast.
it's that fast. It was that fast, and now it's basically impossible for me. I'm totally just jammed in Cannes, and suddenly I was just able to make an hour and a half of space, and everyone is going to, for sure. It's going to be a 50-person event maybe, and it's only the 50 people that really really care about this, and they are going to be there and be mentally available for it, and then it creates a year's worth of work effectively, which is great.
And so it's nice to be at a point in your life also where you're able to provide that.
Yeah.
That you have some connections through equity you've built yourself, obviously, through honesty, through taking this product where you work at and putting your stamp on what's happening out there in the marketplace. And in doing so, you've got more people that are probably willing to say yes to you.
Yes, 100%. And I think that
With no expectation really of anything in return.
nothing,
Which is the beauty of it.
I really try to do to be as honest and as open with anyone that I can possibly be regarding. Hey, listen, this is a thing. I'm interested in doing it. I came up with an idea for myself recently, and I've been talking to people about it, and they give me their honest feedback, and it's really helpful.
What's that? Nothing you can share here?
No, of course I could share it. It's a concept. I've endlessly been interested in the moment of innovation when someone comes up with an idea.
Is it because of your dad, you feel like? He's
A
always
little.
innovating?
My father's always been an inventor, and that's always inspired me to invent he's, I don't know, 50, 60 products that have always been successful. Now my sister doing it as well, endlessly creating whole other units that have nothing to do with art, and now just sort of into like, hey, here's a weight lifting,
Right.
because they can make it. because they have they have a whole company in China that they connect with. Anyway, the point is, I am endlessly creating and innovating about what it is that this industry needs to be inspired by and understand. And so we do that a lot within Ad Age. And then I came up with this. I've called it I'm pitching it to you here, Sean.
I'm listening.
Get ready. It's called Eureka.
Okay.
Now, of course, I think there's the Eureka vacuum and other Eurekas, but they're all from the same Greek root, which is that sort of that moment of realization, the aha moment. And consider Lin-Manuel Miranda, for example. There was a moment when he was reading the Ron Chernow, autobiography about
Listen,
Hamilton.
I still mix up fiction and nonfiction.
That's
You
been a
could
problem
say
for me.
anything.
I skirt and dress.
Yes.
I still can't get. I'm very horrible at that one. So he's reading it, and he thinks he's in page 621. He's like, "Hey, a second, can I make a musical about this? I want to know about that moment. I want to have him explore that moment with me and share with me how did you connect those dots? What made you go from reading this book to thinking about a musical? And how did you get to what you got to? And then, while I love the innovation part of that, I want to know when he recognized he actually had something. There was a lot of, I endlessly throw ideas against the wall, like
all the time.
Totally failed.
Yeah.
Amazing failure. Horrible. But there's every once in a while I know, like, oh, that's going to work. And I like to, if I could string together all of them, if say I did 50 of these interviews and I can string together all of them one by one, I can start to see is there a
some
narrative?
Science behind it.
Is there a narrative from chefs to poets to musicians to creative, actually agencies in their best teams? When they came up with the Kaepernick campaign? I want to find out when did you actually connect those dots?
Do you think you'd see consistency? Do you think that you would see that there is a pattern? Because
My head of marketing, Heidi Waldowski, asked me this. She's like, what's your hypothesis? And I was like, God, I'd like to think that there is there in the initial innovation moment, there's a lot of, I came up with these ideas and I just like to know that moments. But when the tipping point is reached, I think there's going to be something it's probably a business, in output that's like, oh my God, this is going to work. But it could be also just like I feel it in my chest when I saw this thing go up and I saw the curtain rise and I heard the first note. I just knew it, and I don't know. But the truth is that story, that thing, I believe is extraordinarily effective for marketers to know, and I'd like to, and I'm going to explore it.
It's a great idea. And look, there you go. You already have one really amazing idea. Now more of us will know about it, which is awesome. To that point,
I need a lot of people to come to me. It's like, I want to do this one with you. So
I think they will,
challenge.
because I feel like that's a moment all of us have those moments in our life, whether it's that you've created this amazing play or that you decided to do something different.
Yeah.
I'll talk about myself for just a second.
I'd like to hear that, Sean.
So let's talk about this podcast for a minute, right? So I've been banging on the Ad Age door since the moment we were in that elevator, like, let's do something, guys, right? Now, I don't have all of those New York connections. I didn't grow up here. I don't live here. I live in Florida with all of the other old retired people.
But they all look really healthy.
They all look amazing. I think at some point you have that moment where you just say, you know what, I'm not going to rely upon anybody else to do this thing, whatever this idea is.
I'm just going to do it.
I'm just going to do it and see what the hell happens from it. And so that's what I did last year. I just said, I'm going to do this podcast. I'm going to try to do it differently than the ones I hear out there that most agencies have, because all they do is talk about themselves, which I just kind of did here.
Just a teeny bit, but most of it's about me, so it's okay.
But most of them talk also just to their clients, and it feels pitchy and salesy. And so I think I felt like if I could do it more like an Ad Age type thing, and if I could steal some stuff from what Brian was doing out there, but give it a different perspective. And to your point, you used all of these parts of every stop along your way, the agency space that you were in, the CMO positions that you've been in, to now utilize all those parts to become the publisher that you are now. You almost had to have those stops along the way, and you've had your aha moments probably happen constantly because you're here.
But yes, I think you're absolutely right. And also, I gotta say, I'm really proud of that you did this. You called me, you told me it was the thing. I thought this is great. And the one thing that I believe you cannot train is passion.
Well, yeah, that word was, because as you were telling that story about Lynn, that was the thing that I thought maybe that's a thing that that is one of those threads is you have to have enough passion for it that you're willing to fail.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to just throw it out there, and I think maybe that's the thread. I have no idea,
Yeah.
but I have 3 or 4. They're in the can, or that are going to be in the can.
You've already done some?
No, they're lined
Ish,
up.
okay.
And to me to do them, and the whole video staff is like, "Do you know what you're doing?" I'm like, I really don't know at all.
But that's the beauty of it.
But I'm a good conversationalist. I can probably pull it off. And I'm hopeful. Max is here looking at me, just, slightly judging.
We'll know if Max is here 6 months from now, whether you were able to pull this off or not, Josh. Right?
It's true. I really do like the idea.
Even just the process is enlightening to yourself. Let's say that you did 3 or 4 of them and you decided it didn't go exactly the way that you wanted, or the guests, because you never know when somebody gets in, you think that they'll be maybe a great guest, and then they kind of get in, they go, I don't know, Josh, how am I supposed to know? My landlord came up with the idea, and my uncle loaned me the money, right? And so I went with it.
But I guess that's the first moment of innovation, the spark, and then the knowing that I think what marketers really and agency folks alike need to know is sometimes you miss that sign that this is going to work, and if I can string enough of them together and say, like, here's the 7 things, by the way, that are the signs, it might be helpful for
there's probably a book
universe.
In there at some point as well.
I think it could be. I'm not a prolific writer.
I think they'll take excerpts and they'll put them in, I don't know, Ad Age or something like that.
I would hope only if I were lucky. I like this idea, and I think that it's an area specifically for creatives that we really need to be in touch with. How do you most successfully connect that moment and that spark with an output, and then know that in fact you're right. Innovation is it's culture. Advertising and marketing is really just creating culture, and if you can connect culture and that that moment of inspiration and have it be something really valuable, it would be great. Also, on its own, I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
I love ideas. I love when someone comes up with an idea like, God damn, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I get inspired by someone else's.
I get angry sometimes.
I wish I did that one.
I swear, before I even started this agency thing, literally 12 years ago, I was like, I wish they made little cups of ketchup like they do all this other stuff. I'm not lying. I swear to God. I went home to my wife. I was like, I'm either going to do this agency thing or I'm going to do this ketchup in cups thing. She was from Pittsburgh. I was like, I'm sure I could call Kraft Heinz about
100%.
Nothing happens with that. And then, 4 years later, you're Chick-fil-A and here's the ketchup in a cup. And you're like, that was my idea.
I did that. That was me.
Or like the bucket with the hand, like the paint bucket with the handle on it. Have you seen those?
Yes, that actually, it's in it. You're holding the handle.
Yeah, you're holding the handle. You're like, well, who thought of that?
That was a smart one. My wife
suitcases on wheels. Come on.
She invented
suitcases on wheels.
Roller blades that you'd slap to your shoes. This is what she said. This is her thing. She invented it in the mid-90s. I was with her. I can say definitively that she did invent it.
Funny.
And now it's a thing. And she's like, I invented it. I'm like, yeah, but that's the next step. She actually went to a lawyer and got it so she could get it patented.
I bet there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those that are out there, right?
So
we all probably have that.
As my father says, it's a good one. My father says, ideas are the easy part.
It's the execution.
It's the execution. Like, everyone has an idea.
And having the passion.
Yep.
But you can tell sometimes, even as you're talking about the normal stuff that you're doing, which is all important, it's your day job, it's incredibly important, you're doing good work, you take this brief moment and you kind of talk about this other part of what you're doing, and you light up. And I think, you can't see that unless you're watching the video part of this, but
it's awesome video, by the way.
Sometimes, thank you. That's sometimes I think when you also know that maybe there's something there, even if you fail.
Yeah. By the way, highly likely that it will fail, but I'm going to risk it.
Can't fail.
I'm going to risk it.
It can't fail because it's content, and content is everything these days.
I'm just prepared to fail. Like, it might suck, but I'm not gonna let it.
Yeah. And if you have good guests,
yes, it'll be at least interesting.
They'll do the heaviest lifting.
Yes.
And that's the best part. Let's talk about your time here. It's been about 4 years now since you've been here. Is that right?
Actually, I think Monday is my 3-year anniversary. We should celebrate this. My 3-year. This is why I'm doing a podcast.
Happy 3-year anniversary. And you had to almost spend it with me.
No. Hey, listen, I'll take it.
What's changed the most, you feel like, in the 3 years that you've been here?
I think when I joined, it felt a lot of separation.
Did Crane own it back then as well?
Yes, Crane is for 90 years in 2020. So they've owned it from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think it was definitely it was very siloed. I think that was a big change that we made to have all teams much more unified and working together. I think it's really important. While I always respect the editorial integrity. It's actually one of the biggest things that's important for my job. That having edit and events and marketing and sales be aware of what's happening together, it creates a nice synergy where like, oh, isn't that a thing we mentioned? And it can start to work together much more successfully if it's all like this event and this and that. That's just, we just don't do things with other team members. Not that it was as dramatic as that, but that was certainly a major shift. And also, just now it's 3 years, I can say this, is that the momentum is faster and bigger and more visible. When we did after the rebrand that I did with Heidi within the first year, it's funny, I suggested to the Cranes, the leadership, I was like,
is it an actual family, the Crane family?
The Crane family. I said, Marantz, Mr. Crane. I pushed it.
We should all call him Mr. Crane, though, right?
I always
yes.
do.
Okay, Mr. Crane.
Mr. Crane, I'd like to suggest something to you, and it was advertising age when I joined, and I folded a piece of paper and I slid it across the table to him at lunch. And I said, do you think you can handle this? And he's like, is this money? I'm like, no, it is not.
Because I can handle money, kid.
Money. It's not money. And he opened it. And he's like, at age. He's like, yeah. And I said, but I want to actually change the framing and have that be known as a different entity. I said, that's what everyone calls it. I'm like, right, that's what everyone calls it. Let's just go with what we call it and then signal to the industry that we're changing. This is this is 2.5 years ago. And so from that moment on, this enormous momentum has happened. And now we're at this pre-can, moment where we're going in with like 5 events and, the event that I do, which is, hot seat interviews. It's going to be busy. And I'm just so excited because of the amount of the speed of the flywheel that takes time to get going. The speed of the flywheel is definitely moving and I can feel it palpably. And I'm so excited about it.
Is it scary?
Always. I think I always consider myself, I'm not a great skier, but I do know the analogy of being over my skis a little bit. And I try to, in everything that I do from a business perspective, be aggressive. Because if you're just like, I'm sure it'll be fine, you'll lose. Someone else will want it more. So I want to be the person who wants it more. And I do.
The space is an interesting space. Media companies are becoming agencies to some extent. Agencies are becoming media companies. It's becoming a very blendy blend world as marketers are trying to figure out where their dollars go and how to stretch the dollars and how to really stay in front of consumers. You guys have to report on that, obviously, to some extent, but you're also part of the process to some extent.
It's a very meta. We're a meta company. We're in publishing and we're about publishing. So it is certainly a challenging environment for the publishing industry, but we're also writing about the changes in the publishing industry. So it ends up being, we're in it, but we're about it.
And how do you, outside of the typical keeping the separation between church and state, how do you do that today when you've got a brand who's coming to you or you're interviewing them or you're talking to them and you realize, geez, these guys just need a little help with this. Right. How do you do that?
Well, on the business side, it's for me, it's because I'm the agency guy forever.
Yep.
And on the salespeople know how to do this as well, of course. And the all our content studio, it is listening to the client need, of course, and understanding like what thing would give you the answer to help your business grow. And that's what I've been doing for actually realistically forever. Yeah. That's my thing. And I loved,
in essence, kind of that solve, don't sell mentality of like,
always,
what are you trying to solve?
Just I'm listening to you. And it sounds like what you really need is, 200 people in a room to talk to, or you need 200 leads to sell to, or whatever it happens to be. Or you need some visibility. Like no one even knows that you exist.
Can you say that?
Of course. But because the truth is, there as a marketer and anyone, or as a CEO coming to me, they generally already know their problem because they're much more familiar with their business. But as a focus group of one listening to their business, I'm like, funny, I didn't even know Connectivity Holdings until you actually. That's Sean's business.
You didn't need to drop that name, but thank you. Yes.
But I didn't know until we had a direct conversation. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let me take one step into your business and understand it.
You are very inquisitive.
Yeah. Just by nature. I do love to ask questions.
And I think the thing that I've always found interesting about you is that you, not only are you inquisitive, but you listen. That doesn't always happen. Somebody will often say like, oh, well, how's so-and-so? Or what are you doing with this? But they have a point or an agenda and they're trying to figure out how to race to get that. But I've always found you to be not only inquisitive, but genuinely listening.
I was trying desperately to come up with a good joke at the end of this, but
it's probably best not to.
No, I like to hear frankly, I've learned everything that I've learned by listening. I was a very bad listener, I would say, through at least my mid 30s. I was like, I got it all. I'm brilliant. And, my being lucky enough to have a wife who has been with me since 21, she delicately shoved me in directions to be better at certain things. So one thing I really did learn how to be is like, well, you know what? Let me just listen before I jump in with my big freaking idea that's going to solve all the problems, because sometimes I'm wrong. And I'm always willing to I don't have an idea. Just pocket it for a second and just listen. And maybe sometimes I do actually say that thought, but realistically it changes because I'm actually listening to someone's, what's your need? What are you trying to do? So that's the business side. And that is, it's a pleasure to have a client who says, it's funny, I tend to work with people like Sean. I know that not everyone knows you, but you're
this is ridiculous.
Wonderfully nice guy.
Not really.
It's true.
Only when I see you.
No, but
because
right?
I'm still holding out to speak at one of the upcoming events. For every Adage event I go to, I'm like, they're a decent speaker, but I'm a really good moderator.
You are. And if,
one
if
of these
I
days,
can,
Josh,
if I controlled who
church
would
and
be
state,
speaking, I
blah,
just
blah,
would
blah.
let you.
Yes. But to your point, you're always a good listener.
Being a good listener, because it allows me to if I like the person that I'm working with, it makes it really easy because I want to help you.
Yeah.
So I tend to try to work with people I really like. And that creates a nice microcosm of individuals that we all kind of get along.
Who listens to you? Meaning, who do you go to when you're stuck with something, and you're trying to figure it out? Who helps solve your problems?
Depending upon, of course, internally for the team. A lot of times, believe it or not, a lot of times that's my wife. She is a fabulous listener, and she is, if anything, my executive editor forever. Don't say that. Or say this. But she's been fabulous and a wonderful influence for me and of course, my children and my whole life. But, from a business perspective, Brian is, I pitched him Eureka, and he made some subtle suggestions that were meaningful, but because he liked the idea already, but he goosed it, here or there, because I'm open. Like, okay, is this good? Would you let this grow as an idea? And then Heidi, my head of marketing, Heidi Waldesky, also, amazing in the suggestions she can make. But that's the people who tend to are forced effectively to listen to me. But I'm always at least kind in the way that I ask.
It's nice that over those 3 years, though, that you've gotten to know them. And I don't know how long. How long has Heidi been?
Heidi's been with me. Well, actually, technically, it's 10 years because I worked with her through 3 jobs.
Oh, that's funny.
So
she comes with you along the way.
Well,
sometimes.
Not always.
Not like that,
I try not to, but realistically, if I think that she'd make a great fit, I try to find a place. Tina Marcasello was the head of my events. I'm lucky she was here when I got here. I got so lucky that she is here. And that's Kevin Skaggs, who runs all of my technology. He is like my product guy, and he's frankly the most calm technology human being on the planet. So I don't know how he stays so calm about work. And the edit staff is brilliant. I mean, I'm mentioning to him all the edit products that we make that I developed. One is called In the Hot Seat, which is an interview series, which I do because I've got this problem. People call me like, "Hey, can I get into the magazine?" I'm like, "God, I wish you could."
Yeah.
They didn't. Did you pitch it? And no, it didn't happen. I'll tell you what. I'll sit down with you. Totally easy. You and I just let's chat. So we would chat, and made a piece of video out of it, and it was
good
wonderful.
Piece of content.
Good piece of content. Now 65 of them later, it's a show. And it works, and it's effective, and it gets the job done for the marketer, and it meets our business need, and it works. It fits.
And everybody needs content these days. Everybody.
Really do.
I think that's probably one of the most interesting things. When I came to put a little bit of a button on this piece of it, and then we've got a few more minutes of your time if you don't mind. When I came to you and Brian, I wanted to circle back to Brian for a second. How long has he been with you?
He's been here 2 years and change, I believe. Just 2 years and maybe 2.25 years.
So it's nice that he's formed enough equity with you that he feels confident and comfortable enough to give you a critique to some extent.
Totally.
And you need a couple of those. And it seems like normally his critiques are spot on. Again, other than him telling me, go for the tears. You buried the lead, Halter. I tell that story all the time. But that came from him, and it actually came from a point of editorially looking at something that he had no need to do, other than me asking him if he would do me a kind favor and just listen.
Listen to it, yeah.
And knowing then that he did that, which was also kind and didn't need to, and then gave me actual real world advice. There's a lot of people that wouldn't do that. They'd say, "Oh, the
great.
podcast is great. Oh, I heard that guest. They were so good." But he gave me a critique that was actionable.
Yes. He listens with different ears, I believe.
Yeah. I left
He also says he thinks with his fingers, which I think is he thinks with his fingers. I think that's it. He writes like his writing, I guess is the point.
That's funny. Do you know Rich Antoniello
Yes,
at all by chance? So I just left a meeting with him today. I had him on the podcast earlier. He was over at Complex. But again, he's somebody out there sometimes that through just weird synergy, sometimes I'll send him a note or a question or something, and I have no right for him to actually answer back to that. But some way, somehow, through deciding I'm just going to bully my way through and do this podcast, and then getting a few people that were like, all right, what the hell, I'll do it. It's seemed to work. There's no pitch involved with it, which is typically nice. And so, again, I think most people tend to feel a little safe with that. But it's also a small circle. These people do.
It's 300 people, basically.
It is. All in this little crazy city.
I mean, in the people in the inner circle of marketing and advertising, it's really, and a lot of people switch. They go from agency back to brand. It's 300-400 people. You
were talking about Cannes just a little while ago, and so you guys are heading back out there again, right?
It's crazy quantity of. I mean, like literally, I'm on. Everyone makes fun of me, like, oh, you get to go to Cannes now. This must be really fun. Yeah, it's fun. I guess it's fun in that I'm in France, but it's so much work. It's like an immense high pressure situation. I'm doing 12 hot seat interviews, 12. So it's like I have to be prepared for it. It's hard.
It's still relevant, you feel, Cannes?
I believe that it's getting a teeny bit smaller. I believe the creativity is always relevant. I believe that it's where right now the focus of creativity is still. So yes, but I do recognize that just based on what I've read and what we report on, it's getting smaller, meaning the scale of it is smaller. And the largest brands are sometimes not going, and sometimes people are doing counter Cannes programming, like where they're just, some large technology companies are doing programming in their own city.
Almost like what Apple basically did in deciding I'm not going to do it there. Do you see that as a thing that will happen more in the U.S., that they'll, there's obviously a lot of events. You guys throw some great ones. Do you think there will be basically at some point where just enough brands will say, why are we picking up and going?
It still feels relevant to me. I still feel like it's something. Scale is always an important thing.
Yep.
Do you have enough brand marketers there to make a difference? And at this point, there's still quite a lot of brand marketers that are going. It's definitely
it's evolving.
Tuning.
Yeah.
But I went to Mobile World Congress this year. We had a very large event there, and it was very, very heavily attended by global marketers. And that was a surprise for me. And so now we have to kind of switch to, okay, let's go to Mobile World. Let's do more Mobile World things. CES is still huge. And, and the advertising week in the end of September is also quite large. So we have these large tentpoles we have to go to these things. The question is, how much coverage do we want to sort of devote to that particular event?
Talk about your own events for just a second, or longer. You have the luxury to do so. How have those events changed over those last 3 years? Do you feel like at some point you've hit a tipping point? There's too many, there's too few. Are you evolving some of those around? And what do you feel like you've seen in those 3 years?
Only because I'm very cognizant of the quantity of, the hubris in the industry. Everyone wants to be recognized. But I think that Ad Age needs to endlessly represent and kind of a narrow. We can't overdo it, because if you overdo it, then just everyone gets an award, and it's like soccer when you're in fourth grade. It's got to be
you get a medal and you get a medal.
It's important that you make certain that it's about. This is the important thing. I was just on the phone with.
You can name drop. Go ahead.
I won't.
So close. Brian, damn it! He did it.
The truth is, our events, for example, our A-list event is our very important event. That was before my time, and we added a creativity awards component to it. So we made it the A-list and creativity awards. And before my time here, it was a great party. Now it's a gala with 700 people, and it's big. Yeah. And it's a lot of work. It's actually a 10-month process to make that event a reality. Same thing with small agency. It's a very big event, but it is the only.
Josh points to me when he says small agency, because I have a small agency, and I'm constantly, I'm there. I'm always making myself known.
Yes,
it's Sean Halter. Yes,
small agencies need people like you to help them grow their business.
I guess so. I don't know.
It's the truth, and I think that the small agency is the only. It's actually effectively the only conference that is about small agencies and helping of the small agencies, because really they actually work with one another a lot better than big agencies.
Sure.
So small agency is extraordinarily successful and growing so much. And of course, our 40 Under 40 and our Women to Watch, actually Women to Watch just came out this past Monday. And it's wonderful to celebrate the global, women that are recognized. I would say like just now hitting the sort of the front of their curve, not at the not finishing their career kind of thing. Those events are just back to, and we did kind of create this new concept called Next. Next, we normally was a very large, a 600 or 700 person event over 2 days with like 50 speakers. And what we heard from the audience and the attendees was like we had cannabis and sports and or esports and entertainment and technology and government, all these things in over a day and a half. And the request was, would you mind making this about one thing, so we can go deep on a topic? So we've changed that this year with both our Inside Pages and our Next series. So we just did OTT, and now we have Stack, Marketing Stack coming up, and Voice and DTC, and all of them are requested effectively by marketers and agencies who want to know about something. And of course, then the brands who are the most relevant come to it, and the sponsors who want to be associated with that come to it as well.
Well, when you see this, I want to make sure that I preface this by saying, Josh, before I stopped over here, I was over at the Trade Desk, which is a partner of ours. We work with them pretty consistently. We have a webcast series that we're bringing out this year, and literally every topic that you just mentioned, I swear to God, I'll send you the email, are all topics that we've got coming up on that, but it's because those are really the most relevant. DTC is incredibly relevant.
Huge.
We have OTT coming up this month with them. And those are the things that really, I think, for veteran marketers, to some extent, it's the part that they know they need to know. And maybe to some extent, they're just not comfortable walking down the hall and asking, somebody who's maybe a rung or two underneath them, could you explain the difference between OTT and connected TV to me? Are they the same? Are they different?
Yeah, it's very true. Also, I think that's what Ad Age is raison d'etre, if you would be so. I can use French.
Is it French? Oh my God! Here comes the kids. So what does that mean?
It's the reason.
I took 3 years of Spanish because the girls were prettier. I don't know.
It's the reason for being. It's Ad Age needs to be that vehicle that allows marketers and agencies and brands, whoever you are, to be like, I don't totally understand this, but if I read this article about why why any topic,
why OTT is the new shiny penny right now, and what's
today. And I think that technologically it's we're ever advancing, and I think that's what's really important, to have Ad Age be that vehicle that you can sort of embarrassingly raise your hand, but just do it by searching and be like, here's what's going on.
And so right now that's still print, still a print edition that comes out regularly, consistently. That size has it always been that size?
We've switched it. When we did the rebrand, we did make it like a quarter inch shorter on the top, and we made a teeny bit changed. But just because we wanted it to be, we heard feedback. People wanted to fit in their briefcase a little more easily, so people fold it anyway. But that was important. The print piece is still extraordinarily valuable.
And so, where do you see that evolving over the next 3 to 5 years? Do you feel like it just has to be a part of what it is? Is it because New York is still a city of commuters and they're still willing to grab a copy of the Post or grab a copy of Ad Age and throw it, to your point in whatever?
They are. I think my gut tells me that I actually know from the analytics that people, almost, I think over 50% or more than that probably are reading it on a mobile platform. That's why we made our mobile platform as fast as we can so people can get the content in the articles. The print is a more of a, it's read, when you're on a plane, you have the time to read the articles because that's actually there. But I think that both of them together, the combination of the 1-2 punch is so very valuable from the information we receive, that it's very hard for me to imagine a time when it wouldn't be still in print. But I'm not crazy.
Sure.
I also recognize that it's anything could change.
But you guys have already been evolving around that space. That it's not that it's irrelevant if and when that time comes. To your point, you're going to con, you're doing all of this other kind of content building, and that really is what the publication has become. It's not just
totally right.
This part is over here and this part is over here, and to put a button on the whole thing, it's part of really what's happened over those last 2 or 3 years. You've taken all the different disparate parts and you've tried to pull them in essence all altogether. I've got time for one more question, if that's okay with you.
Of course, Sean.
Well, I mean, we're in your space.
No, well, I'm giving you full permission. Yes.
What do you wish you knew more about?
Oh God. I'll be honest with you. I'm desperate. I learned coding when I was like basic.
Yeah.
I learned, and then I learned Pascal, and then which was a very horrible woman, which we won't go into, which was horrible to me. And now of course HTML. So I think that's 3. I know 3 programming languages effectively, but I feel like in the next 5 years, and I'm kind of lifting this, paraphrasing a little bit from Shelley Palmer. He has proposed that in the next 5 years, knowing coding will be more important than being able to use Word or Excel as a job requirement. So I feel like, so I went to my friends at General Assembly and I was like, listen, I need to learn, Python pretty fast, because I feel like I'm like inside my brain, like way in the core, like that little sort of, little homunculus that lives inside your brain. It's the thing. Anyway,
you saw my eyes.
Yep,
there's something living in my head, but I don't know. I don't know homunculus.
Homunculus. It's a little
homunculus.
It's a little being. I believe it was Aristotle that tried to realize. Hold on, just hold on a second. Aristotle.
My dad carried Playboy in the house. We didn't even have a Bible for crying out loud.
Aristotle. Stick with me. Aristotle and was Aristotle? It could have been Plato, but Aristotle. He was trying to figure out what the soul was. Like what is the thing that is the you?
Yes.
So the
id of whatever's
the inside of you
there.
was this homunculus that watched the theater of you living your life. That's what.
That was him banging this microphone, by the way, in his own studio.
I'm a big gesticulator.
He's excited about homunculus.
No, I totally forgot my point, but it was great.
Was I close to being right?
No. What was the?
I was asking about what you wanted to, you knew more about. You're telling me coding.
Coding. So I think that's the thing.
We got hung up on homunculus.
Sorry, I want to learn how to be better at what I believe will be something critical in the future, so that I. Not unlike some marketers and brand people that are slightly older than myself are thinking what's a DFP, and I don't they get concerned about that. I don't want to feel that concern about coding, so that I can be aware of how to use a computer and make my own app or whatever I want to do.
If I can extend off of that for just a second again. Josh Golden. I mean, I wish if I had that name. Could you imagine if I had the name Josh Golden?
It's pretty good.
I probably would just. I know
just
it is.
Hang it up and be like, "Yep, Josh Golden."
Yeah, I mean, I'd be the naked cowboy in New York City with a name like that. Yeah.
That's
what's my name? It's Golden. Josh Golden. I'm stuck with Sean, spelled S-E-A. I got seen my whole life, all of that kind of stuff.
I got a whole.
My homunculus isn't even. It's laughing at me. My homunculus inside is probably laughing at me.
The
coding thing, though, is shocking to me.
Yeah,
I think only because I feel like that's getting simpler and simpler because they're appling it up to some extent.
Do you know how to do it?
Well, no, of course not. But I have a couple of people that
ask every single generation alpha person.
I've been
Gen
begging
Zer.
my daughter, who is 15 now, to learn how to code. I'm begging her, and she's learning Photoshop, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
but
Photoshop is good.
I'm like, Lainey, if you could just code, do you know how much money she would make as a female coder?
Yes,
I mean,
it's true.
They're hard to find.
But you have to. I'm going back to passion. You have to have a passion for it. If you don't,
she does not have a passion for it.
Then you're not going to dig it. But I really believe that it obviously will get easier. But I believe you need to understand. There's a logic in it. There's a lot of algebra in it. But if you can understand how to do it, you can connect that. You can smartly connect that to business, and then optimally data, and you're golden. Boom!
There's your job security. Publishing goes away or whatever,
yes.
And suddenly now you're coding web pages for all of the brands that you know.
That's my backup.
That's your backup plan. Did you tell me that your daughter was also? How old are your kids?
10. My daughter's 10, a famous soccer player. My son is 11 and a famous actor.
Do you think they'll go into the business, whatever the business looks like?
I think my son might be. I don't know. I can't tell. My son, at this point, he has done some acting, and he's decided
still a chance for tears at all.
I'm working on it. I'll try to scoop it out. He said, "I want to be." He loves baseball, and he's been doing a couple films, and he said, "I want to be a baseball actor." I'm like, Eli, kind of narrowing that down a little bit. It's like I wanted to
very specific type.
It's like what's the line from The
Baseball
Natural?
Actor.
Why'd you do it, Roy? From the
movie quotes. It's never me. And how about your daughter?
What
do you think she'll do? Any ideas? Too young to know?
Too young right now. She's like, but she's digging sports, so she's got it. Actually, with this CMO that I was on the phone with earlier, she believes
whose name shall go unnamed. Are you afraid I'm going to use him on the show and be like, well, you should have heard what Josh Golden said to me?
She was talking about how important it was to connect the sports in her young life into her business, in her latter life, because it's all about the team. And I like that. And my daughter is very digging sports. And so the connection she has with her teammates is, I believe, will make her extraordinarily, whatever she'd like to do, it will help her to do that more successfully for sure.
I have to feel like those of us that are in this business hope that you pass something on to your offspring to some extent. I love the business.
So, this is a great business.
My
for sure.
son is like, I'm going to be a baker. Stay away from me. I don't care about any of this other stuff. But my daughter, I think there's a chance. She's doing Photoshop. She wanted to go to Spain this year with my wife, and so I said, "We'll pay if you do some work for us." So she was reluctant,
Nice.
but she's like, "Okay, fine." So she's doing some Photoshop work for us. But I don't know. That's what it's all about as we get older, to some extent, isn't it? Giving back or hoping that we're leaving our kids in a better place than we were. Listen, that was almost an hour. How was that, Josh?
I feel good. Actually,
Listen,
I would say
I had no specific agenda.
you wouldn't. By the way, Sean gave me 0 questions. He was like, "You'll be fine." I'm like, "Okay, just curious what we're going to talk about." Whatever
That's
it is.
true. And I feel like sometimes it's best when the conversation kind of guides where it goes. I think you gave us some great feedback, some good nuggets, hopefully along the way. Hopefully you felt like this was, again, just a good opportunity to be on the opposite side.
Yes, it is.
Of
it
the
is funny to be on this side.
Learn what not to do as you watch Sean Halter's stumbled my way through this to some extent. Listen, if you want to find out more about Josh, it's pretty simple. Just pick up Ad Age. He's in there all the time.
Yes.
If you're in the south of France and you know French, please just head up to him and speak French to him. He'll probably know that along the way. Or stalk him on LinkedIn, or literally just stalk him at the events, because that's literally what I do now. Sometimes I feel like you see me and you kind of go, all right,
No way.
let me just get this out of the way.
I'm hugging him out always.
We're always hugging it out. Josh Golden, thank you very much for all of your
Sean.
hospitality. Thank you for being kind to me in allowing me to utilize you as a guest, and always being encouraging of us doing this podcast. Someday, some way, we're going to tie this damn thing into Ad Age to some extent. Whether Brian's going to let me to or not, I'm just going to start posting all of these on all of your social channels. And I'm just going to start saying brought to you by Ad Age until he finally tells me, yes, Sean, you're not allowed to actually do that. That's probably what I'm going to do next.
Good idea.
Thank you very much. Guys, thank you so much. Listen, this is one of our last 3 episodes of this season. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you missed any of the episodes, please, by all means, go to thecmosuite.com. We're going to take a little bit of a summer break. We're going to bring out a different podcast called The Digital Fix. We're excited about that. We've got some great ideas to talk a little bit more about the industry itself, what's wrong with digital marketing and media, and how to kind of fix that. And then we'll be back in the fall with more episodes, and hopefully whoever that CMO was that Josh was talking about, he'll tell me that off the air, and we'll have them on next day. Like, oh, that Josh. Of course, I told him he could say my name next time. Listen, thank you guys for listening to the show, and we'll take it out from here. Thanks.
Thanks for hanging out in the CMO Suite, the podcast for marketers who want to be in the know, presented by Connectivity Holdings.
Don't miss The Digital Fix, the podcast for digital marketing done right, this summer on iTunes and Spotify.
You're a C-level manager. You shouldn't have to know the difference between behavioral or contextual targeting, but your agency should. Uconnect provides brands and biddable teams direct access to platforms like The Trade Desk, Google, Amazon, Facebook, OTT, and more. Their US-based traders can train your in-house team or provide complete transparency with no minimums and CPM-based service pricing for true transparency. Something Mighty Hive, The Trade Desk, and Centro simply don't offer. Tired of being the smartest one in the room? Reach out to Uconnect today for a free demo. Uconnect, the world's leader in true transparent biddable media.